Experts have found what they think is the one emotion that causes procrastination. Procrastinators around the world, rejoice. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is our podcast. You can learn all about us there, including our Tuesday podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, 3 stories in and out, stories you probably need to know to navigate the world. At least that's the way Tim and I see it. So, Mr. Bennett, welcome to June. Happy. Oh, and I didn't do it on Unbuttoned. I think I was being chastised. Top of the Pride to you, and happy Pride, everyone. It's the Pride Leprechaun. Comes out of his box.
Yes. I posted him. I posted a picture of him, I think. But you have one you said was a muscly one, right? Or somebody sent
that
you
was the one that Billy found. It was this guy with hot pants on. It's an illustration, but it's very,
I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rainbow. It's almost like he looks like a majorette. The rainbow, the whole bit. So there you go. Okay, a couple of things for you. First, we did get Tim has talked about, we love local ads, car ads, anything local, because a lot of heart goes into them, but often they're just fun. I mean, they don't take it too seriously. It's not a forever thing. And so Tim has often talked about a company that does bath fitting or something down by you. And these guys dress up in these schmata rag, like, what do they call those house coats?
House dress,
with the snaps.
House dress.
You would put that on, you'd do cleaning or whatever. So one of our listeners who has met Tim actually sent us, his name is Robert, and he said, I live in Lewis, and I met up with Tim when he was on the council in Rehoboth. This was before he had the knee surgery and was for a pride flag raising event.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
and he said, and so he provided the an image. And Tim, I think I might have sent you the PDF of the what the stuff looks like this week, the graphics. And so he found the company, and it's called Peninsula Bath.
Yes, that's who it was. Yes.
And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, and this might be a good reason for you to, in fact, watch on YouTube, I grabbed some frames from it, and it's these 2 guys with heavy beards. They obviously put fake boobs in, and they got these crazy wigs that are just slapped on their head, almost Monty Python-like. You could see their hair and everything. And so he provided the links to the ads, and so I have the audio for the ad. And let's see if I could reset this here. I don't know if that's going to let me do that.
Mercy, Mildred. Swirl me in bubbles and call me a jacuzzi. I told you should have called Peninsula Bath.
At Peninsula Bath, your safety is our #1 priority because we believe in baths without bruises and showers without surprises.
I'm no longer scared to use my shower. Thank you, Peninsula Bath. Peninsula Bath, ready when you are.
So that picks it up a little bit between it, but it starts with one of them saying, "I'm here for our weekly Twister game." Here we go.
Mildred, you ready for our weekly Twister match? Help! Linda, I've slipped and I can't get up. Mercy, Mildred. Swirl me in bubbles and call me a jacuzzi. I told you should have called Peninsula Bath.
At Peninsula Bath.
So that's basically the whole ad right there in 2 little pieces. But if you watch this thing, it's hysterical, because I don't know how they came up with the idea of just, let's do this, right? Let's do this.
Let's put on house dresses and drag. Yeah, and they're 2 kind of burly men.
Yes, very
beefy
burly.
guy, big guys, middle-aged guys, and very bad drag on purpose, as you would say. It's just kind of. There's a number of the commercials. I see them all. I mean, of course, we're talking about them, so they must be working. But you have to wonder how they came up with the idea. Is there it's an inclusive community down here in Rehoboth Beach. Let's put on house dresses and wigs, and we're going to sell some bath fitting.
It's almost right out of when Harvey Korman used to do drag, or on Carol Burnett. It's that kind of thing where it's men dressed as, it's not like. Another
they're not trying to be
update.
women.
Yeah, exactly. No, in fact, quite the opposite. So it's amusing in its way. Another little update I have for you is last week I reported on a man who was trying to sell his father's Lego collection for like $200,000. It put on consignment to Bricks and Minifigs. They closed the store, the collection, they don't know where it is. Well, Jigs from Texas, who sent us this story, sent me an update. And he said, the Lego thing that I sent you earlier has gotten batshit crazy since I sent it to you. And then he says, well, batshit crazier. There's been lawsuits, arrests, accusations of police corruption. Even the CEO of Patreon has been pulled into its orbit, telling Minifigs to shove it. And I read somewhere that there was even a death threat. Legos do this to people. And he finishes by saying, it makes Housewives of Utah look like Sesame Street. So, you hear it here first on the focus group, folks.
Wow.
But, the Pride Leprechaun does not approve of a store taking someone's, oh, no, top of the pride to you, not top of the pride to Bricks and Minifigs, though. Yeah.
Well, you have to understand. I still think that Lego thing's an inside job, right? I guess that's what we'll find out.
You have some kits that come in that were sealed, and they don't make, I don't know if you saw, Tim, did you watch CBS Sunday Morning this week?
I did. I saw parts of it.
Did you see the part about the cathedral in Barcelona, the Segura Cathedral?
Yeah.
Did you notice at the end they mentioned that Lego had released one of its largest sets ever, and it's a set to build it's like you build a model of the cathedral. I think it had 7,000 bricks or something. It was I know it was $800, but imagine getting that kit and saving it for 10 years, and it's wrapped, it's never been opened. They only make a limited amount. So if someone sees that coming through the door, like a Star Wars kit or something, all right, we'll put it on consignment. Yeah, it's mystery. That's all a mystery to me how that get worked out.
There's a couple down here. Joe Fowler's the one guy. He and his husband. And at Christmas time, they put together these elaborate Lego sets that they have every year, and they post them. And I think of you about it because don't they give you a schematic to try to follow? Something like 3 bricks. Yeah.
And believe me.
But to me, I would just want to go do it. But you've got to be very precise. It's like a puzzle. You got to be very precise with it. And and then after you build it, I guess it sits there. Then what?
That's it.
That's it.
Well, when we were growing up, Lego wasn't so specialized. You had the 4 brick, the 2 brick, like you had a series of bricks, and you could kind of get the shape you wanted, but then you could break it all down and do it again. Now you have to have all this stuff. So it's Hey, did you I know that Matt had I know that some of your old toys went on the table recently. Did I think that he sold the Fortress, the Indian one?
I don't know if that's sold yet. There was one piece missing to it, and he found it on eBay and actually bought a piece to it. No, it was the so in the Fort Apache they had on the corners they had these plastic huts that stuck to the top, and one half of the hut's missing. I'm sure it's was in some other box somewhere that got tossed. But he found a companion piece to it. And then I had the shooting gallery.
Yes.
And he did find, and I had the legs, and the legs alone will go for $30. But I don't think either of them sold. He did sell, though. There were a number of other things that we kind of laughed about. My father had these etchings, I think I told you, of like a squirrel and an owl and a chipmunk or something. He bought at the fair, the town, the Danbury State Fair. And my mother didn't know what to do with them, and nobody really wanted them. But Matt sold them for like $10 each, which I thought was pretty good.
Well, considering
I'm sure my dad paid
them
more. Yeah. And then there was a lamp with a bear on it it was a bear, like a plastic or I don't know, some sort of bear with a trout in its mouth or a salmon in its mouth, and it was, I guess, in a kid's room or something. I thought it'd be fun to have on the porch. It was my grandfather's. And
was that shot down?
It didn't make it to the house. But Matt sold it. Some guy loved it and got it for his little boy's room. Thought the kid loved it. So I'm glad it found a good home.
There's
But yeah, he
always
sold some of
something.
that other stuff. Yeah. It's amazing what people will buy and what they won't buy. Things you think people would buy, they just don't look at or something. And then
So, I was up in Connecticut recently, and I was reminded that you had Fort Apache, right?
yeah.
I had a castle. I had a medieval castle. It was a plastic base that was raised with 2 ramps that came up. There was a moat, and then the castle was 4 metal pieces that cooked together and sat inside the moat. And get this, it came with catapults, with miniature rocks and rubber bands. Now you and the more I think about it, and you'd shoot the soldier, you'd put the catapult and you'd shoot someone's going to lose an eye. Like the toys that we had, imaginative.
Is it still in Connecticut? Was it still up in the
long
house?
gone, long gone. If I open a box one day and find a little plastic catapult, I'd die laughing, because we used to lose the rocks. We lost the plastic boulders that came with the catapults. And so here's what my mom told me when we lost the rocks or the boulders. What were they, sweetie? Show me. And I showed her a little plastic thing. Oh, just go out and get some stones.
Get some pebbles.
And pebbles, and shoot them with your catapults with the rubber band. Oh my. Oh, the good old days.
The old
All
days.
right.
Yeah.
Here's how the show works. Tim and I catch up as we've just been doing. We have a segment we're going to do in a moment called Caught Our Eye. We bring news, stories, or items to each other's attention. I think we've only crossed paths once with the same story in all the years we've been doing the focus group. We have a quick, we have the signature segment of the show called Business Birthday. We have a quick break, and then we're going to talk about a recent study that came out about identifying the root cause of procrastination. Tim and I are going to benefit or not benefit from the article, because we're still of the opinion that you do things when you do things. Sometimes it's right before the deadline. So
generally.
There you go. Perfect. So without further ado, Tim, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So this was a story. It's not a long story. It went into more detail than it needed to, but I just found it interesting. The headline is, "What's it like to have your nude body auctioned off for tens of millions of dollars?" So there's a woman. She's a retired supervisor. She's 60 years old. She was a benefits supervisor in HR in the UK. And she had set for an artist named Lucian Freud. And he's a artist in London. And he had painted, she's a large woman, and he had painted, she had set for him 4 different times, and he painted 4 different nudes of her. And as I said, she's probably over 300 pounds and large lady, and was just in a very kind of, I guess you would say slumpy. I don't know if that's the right word, but just kind of
relaxed.
Sitting in a chair.
She's
relaxed.
relaxed.
Is a nice word. Yeah. And lo and behold, 2 of the paintings. So this was in 1990, and each session she said she got about $50 US. And so she found out that one of his paintings was going up to the auction block, and the estimated value was $45 million. So she shows up at Sotheby's, and they said she walked in as this auction is getting ready to happen, and she knew the expectation was this would pull in about $45 million. And she walked in and she said, "I'm here. The original's here." She walked into the auction. This is what it looks like. So the painter had died in 2011. They've been auctioning off his works. And she said, well, she was well aware of the lofty price tag. She said, "That's about as far as it goes. It feels very weird because I never really got any money other than sitting for this, and now it's funny to see these pieces of art, and they're large. They were over 200 pounds. They're large wall paintings,
big heavy frame, the whole bit.
Big heavy frames. It took 5 to 6 people to get it off the wall, and they said that when she said she was there for real life, people were excited to meet her and so forth. And they said 2 records had broken in the first 2 they sold. They sold one in 95 for $33 million in New York. I'm sorry, in 2008 in New York City. And then another one went for $56 million. I mean, you can't believe this, can you?
$56 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they're thinking this one that they're selling this next month in June. It goes on the block June 10th. It's called Sleeping by the Lion Carpet. It was painted in 1996. That will go for, they're thinking about 45 million, but considering what the other ones have done, it probably will be more. So I just thought it was fascinating, and why I kind of laughed about this a little bit. We have a friend, or mutual friend, Mary Seton Corboy, who has since passed on, but she worked for years. She worked for Andy Warhol.
Yep.
And he used her as his muse for breasts. So he had this famous model, or a famous woman he would always paint, named Helga, who was around the farm in Chester County. But he used to often put Mary's breasts on Helga because he liked Mary's breasts. He liked the way her breasts looked. So when he would paint
was it Warhol?
What did I say? Did I say Warhol?
Warhol, wasn't it?
No.
Wyatt?
It was Andrew Wyeth.
Andrew Wyeth, yeah.
Thanks for catching. Thanks for catching me.
I thought
I looked at your face like, huh?
I thought Andy Warhol and breasts.
Andrew Wyeth.
Andrew Wyeth, yeah.
the famous painter. So he always used this woman Helga, but he liked Mary's breasts, and he used to always talk about it. And there was some debate back and forth about it. I believe her, but I asked her, what is it like to have? You would see your breasts on all these paintings and things he did. And then he did one painting. It's called The Liberal. And I was actually going to have Matt make a
copy
reproduction of it.
Yeah.
But it's at a museum. I believe it's at a museum in the South. I think it sold for 30 million or something crazy. But it's Mary. It's exactly Mary. It's a hat she used to wear.
You need a copy,
jacket
Tim.
she used to wear. Yeah. And it's her face. And I remember because we had bought mutual friends of ours that got everyone refrigerator magnets of it and all these different things. But it was funny. I said to her, what's it like to know that this is out there? It's going to be there forever, right? For as long as... And she just was kind of similar to this Sue Tilley. She said, well, I he took a picture. Right? I sat there. Yeah. I came in from the cold. He sketched. He painted a little bit and never got any money for it. But, I don't know. Do you think someone should get paid? That's, I guess, the question here, because that's what people had asked her. So these 4 paintings will sell in excess of 100 million. Now the artist is dead, but
Yes.
there's no obligation to pay her. But if the artist was still alive and it went for 30 million, would you have given, if you were the artist, would you have given her a little something?
I'll have to ask our friend Pat about that because he knows a lot about this
I don't know what
stuff.
the protocol is.
Neither do I.
I'm
I have no idea.
guessing it's zero, considering nobody ever seems to get anything, right? It's like a photograph if you took a photograph.
Well, think about how many people sit for students, for art classes. It's such an interesting question. It's not. I've never heard somebody making money unless they were paid a small fee for like the $50 an hour, whatever it is, to sit for a class. But for an artist, like you're discussing, it was more of the pleasure of being painted or being the subject, right?
Yep.
And I guess you don't suspect that the work is going to increase in value like that. Now we're talking 30 some years ago, right? 40?
Yeah, so the early 90s. And she had said why she did it, because somebody asked her about whether she was self-conscious, about her body and so forth. And she said she thought it was important to show that people came. You don't have to be a
shapes and sizes.
Yes, you don't have to be a supermodel to be a subject of an artist or something. And so it's very jovial, and they said again very pleasant about the whole experience. But it was funny. They said when she showed up at the auction, said the real one's here, and they got a picture of her. If you're watching, she's sitting in a chair.
It's a great picture.
She does look better than the painting, I think, but it's just me.
Well, let's say the artist took liberties and they interpreted her form. They interpreted her, as they saw it. So I think it's a great one. I think it's a really cool thing when you can marry life to art, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a completely different camp with what caught my eye, and it caught my eye because it comes up. It's a perennial. The headline is, "Was Walt Disney really frozen beneath Disneyland?" How many times have we heard this? If you watch,
they're going to thaw him out, and he's going to come back and do new Donald Ducks and Mickey Mouses.
That's right. Or if you watched Futurama, which is by the same creator as Matt Groening, I think, as The Simpsons, they used to have these frozen heads. They never had Walt Disney, but they had Nixon, they had Leonard Nimoy, they had a bunch of them. This whole idea that you'd freeze somebody. It's one of the most famous urban legends, and it still persists to this day. So what we know is that Walt Disney spent much of his later life dealing with, he died of lung cancer. I think he died in December 15th, 1966 at the age of 65. And that was after declining health. Official records and family accounts have consistently documented what happened. He was cremated and his remains were placed in a memorial park in California. These details have been available to the public for years, but why let a fact get in the way of a good story, right? Right? I think it's much more fun to think he's frozen. And it says here, despite what countless articles and television specials and whispered conversations have suggested over the years, there's no reliable evidence that he was ever cryogenically frozen. In fact, cryonics, the process of freezing a dead person's body, and they were preserved at super low temperatures, is still kind of one of those weird sciences, because no human being preserved through cryonics has ever been successfully revived as of 2026. Scientists continue to debate whether such a feat will ever be possible. So, there are people who pay to be frozen, hoping that sometime in the far future, medical science will advance to the point where whatever disease or illness they had could be cured, and science could figure out a way to revive them from cryonics. And it just finishes here by saying how the frozen Disney myth began. Like many famous myths, this story appears to have grown from a combination of timing, speculation, and public intrigue. And part of it goes back to Walt Disney's fascination with science and the future and Tomorrowland. So people kind of thought, oh, well, he was so into space and the future and science that maybe they froze him and he'll come back someday. And it even gets to the point where some versions claimed his body was stored in a secret laboratory. Others suggested he was hidden beneath Disneyland itself. If you were going to go beneath Disneyland, I don't even know where you'd hide the body, right? Like maybe under the Haunted Mansion. Haunted Mansion would be a good one, come to think of it.
Yeah.
So it lives on. It says here, Walt Disney's actual legacy is even more impressive, but it says here, his imagination changed entertainment forever and his influence continues to live on. No pixie dust or science required. I mean, so folks, he's not frozen. He was cremated. He's in a memorial park somewhere in California. It's nice to think he was, and he can come back and do something, I suppose. But it's so absurd compared to Tim's very highbrow. Tim, today you took the high road. You took Painter.
It's funny because there's another story about Frozen and Mary that I could tell, because the thought of this would be, right, you thaw out Walt Disney,
right?
I get right if he was frozen, and then do you just think the organs start working?
There you go. You raise the whole specter of the problem, which is the whole body's frozen, sub-zero. You unfreeze somebody. There's all this damage to tissue and all. But again, there are companies that people sign up with. They, right before death or right at the moment of death, the body's taken, they're frozen, and they believe that someday we'll have the technology to revive them.
Well, Mary, again, so she had this urban farm. And she had a pond in the farm, and she had all kinds of fish and koi and things. And so if you remember, Matt dug a koi pond in my yard in Pennsylvania.
But didn't the birds get the koi all the time?
Birds used to get them all the time, whatever. And I spent too much money on replacing fish to where I just got 3-cent goldfish because it was a buffet for the birds. So although one of the first years I had these really nice koi, and they grew a nice size.
Big. Yeah.
And I said to Mary, what do I do in the winter? She goes, oh, they're fine. You just leave them. I said, really? I said, well, what if the pond freezes? No, they're fine. They're fish. They're fine. I said, okay. So, of course, winter comes. They freeze. I see them stuck in the ice, So spring comes, and it's thawing, and the fish are all floating on the top. I said, Mary, my koi are all dead. I said, are they going to wake up? She goes, what? I said, the fish all died over the winter. You said that you just leave them. So
what did she say? This is such a setup for Mary.
Yeah, she goes, oh, well, sushi. I said, you told me they were going to be fine. I would have done something. So what I found out was, because the pond was so small comparatively, I was supposed to put a little heater in there because there has to be a little bit of air that comes through into the water. But essentially, they suffocated and died. I felt horrible for them. There's a woman down here that tells me, I didn't realize this. She said fish can recognize you, and they also recognize the sound of your voice.
Oh,
Did you know that?
No. And they knew you.
So those fish knew me, and they knew I killed them. But I
They knew to blame.
So anyway, this woman down here was telling me about the fish, and she was very upset because she just lost a fish the other day. And she was telling me how they are a lot smarter than people think. And Richard was taking care of somebody's koi here, and they do know when you come to the pond, they come to the edge, they want to eat. I don't know if you've ever seen that with the
They learn the
fish.
behavior of being fed.
Yeah. Anyway, I just...
By the way, the ending of that story is so perfectly Mary.
Yeah.
I mean, when you delivered the line of, oh, well, sushi.
Sushi.
She was that pragmatic.
Well, I took them out thinking they were going to thaw. I kept thinking they were going to come back to life. And then that's the whole Walt Disney thing, right? That you're just going to thaw them and all of a sudden the heart's going to start and the eyes are going to open. Where's Mickey and Minnie?
There are animals who go into hibernation and their body temperature and their metabolic rate drops to such a point that they are almost, at death's door. But they're designed for that. All right, moving on. We're going to go and celebrate a business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
I know you're not a coffee fan. Do you like donuts, John? I don't even think you like donuts. You like cake?
I never say no to a good donut, and I think where you're going is a place I always had good donuts at, so we'll go there.
So William Rosenberg, born June 10th, 1916, he died of pancreatic cancer in 2002 at 86. He was the American founder our American entrepreneur and founder of Dunkin Donuts in 1950, way back in 1950, one of the early pioneers in name brand franchising. The original name for Dunkin Donuts was Open Kettle when he established it initially in 1948 before he franchised. There's well over 10,000 Dunkin Donuts outlets now in over 32 countries. I didn't realize they were in that many countries. Born in Boston, Massachusetts, due to financial problems, he was forced to leave school in the 8th grade and support his family during the Great Depression. They said he'd always been an entrepreneur. He had taken the backseat out of his car and bought a big chunk of ice. And he and his friends in high school were chipping an ice pick off there, and they charged, I think it was 10 cents a pick of ice or something. Came home in one day with $171, which was the equivalent of a year's salary during the Depression.
Wow. Okay.
So they said he was always thoughtful of trying to make money. He'd gone into World War II, and when he came back, he had borrowed $1,500, which he added to some war bonds that he had. He borrowed $1,000, added to $1,500, and he opened up what we know as the Industrial Luncheon Service Company. And essentially, it was remember those silver trucks that would go to factories or they would go to construction sites?
Yep.
And so he started
truck,
these,
right? Like a craft.
a craft truck. So these would go to factories or to construction sites for coffee breaks and snacks. And it was the birth of what we now call them canteen trucks. And at one time he had over 200 of them driving around. The Boston media initially dubbed them Meals on Wheels, which of course now we know Meals on Wheels is something else. So they became these catering trucks, and they would come every morning, and they were stocked with all kinds of foods and sandwiches. I remember when I worked at Baskin-Robbins, one would come, and everybody would run out to the truck.
Tim, did they sometimes have that quilted look?
Oh yeah, the quilted metal.
The metal
the sides
done,
that went up.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They were all very clean and shiny.
Mm-hmm.
So he had these operating around all the time, and kind of this mobile catering. But he found out as he was doing the revenue, they also charge more for coffee off the truck than if you could get it at a little side cafe or store. And he did that on purpose because he wanted to have great coffee. He thought good coffee would help. But he found out that the revenue from these trucks, he said 40% of the revenue came from donuts and coffee. So even though he had sandwiches and juices and fruit and water and all this other stuff. Yeah.
40%. That's...
So he got this idea to say, you know what, I'm going to open up a donut shop. So he opens up what he calls the Open Kettle. And he took a note from Howard Johnson's, who had 25, I believe they had 25 ice cream flavors. And so he decided he was going to have 52 varieties of donuts, one for every week.
Okay.
So that's where
that comes from.
Yeah.
Every week, a flavor for every week of the year. Okay.
For every week. And it caught on. He ended up opening 5 stores. And then he realized that he McDonald's at the same time was trying to franchise. So was Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so he followed that idea of the concept to say, there's the only way I can grow financially is to sell off franchises. And he was also one of the very first presidents of the International Franchise Association, because he got with Ray Kroc and a couple of other people that were franchising and said, we need to set some industry standards across the whole platform of franchising. He also then tried to open a burger chain. I never heard of it. It was in New England. It was called Howdy Beef and Burgers. Did you ever hear of the Howdy Burgers?
Never came across
so it. Was from,
no.
Yeah, I never did either. It was from 1947 till, I'm sorry, 1960 until 1970 is the last one closed. So it was inspired by the Howdy Doody show. And so they had a Howdy Doody mascot. They served burgers, French fries, fish sandwiches, and New England chowder, New England clam chowder. They had 27 locations in New England before the last one closed in the end of the 70s. But there was none that I remember in Connecticut.
No.
Howdy Beef and Burger. He in 2001 decided to publish his autobiography, Time to Make the Donuts. You remember that from his famous commercial when they used to do the Dunkin Donuts commercials. He was married twice. As I said, he died. He died of bladder cancer, not pancreatic cancer, in 2002 in Massachusetts at the age of 86.
You know, passing away from bladder cancer is sort of an odd one. It's one of the few cancers that has an incredibly high survival rate, because if they catch it in time and it never leaves the bladder,
right,
you could be treated for it repeatedly and do fine. So he must have had zero idea he had it, and it must have somehow escaped the bladder.
Yeah, I was going to say, how would you know you had? I know you had a friend that had bladder cancer. How do you know? Is there a discharge or is there pain?
Yeah. If I remember, it could be that you might see blood in your urine, and there could be discomfort. But I suppose if you didn't see these signs, it could just go on. And I know in our friend's case, he caught it and had it treated several times.
Yep.
Because they knew that if it was there, they could investigate it and fix it. So interesting. Dunkin Donuts, and I'm not a coffee drinker. I know that when you used to come to this city for this show, Dunkin used to be your thing, but then it was sort of replaced by Horton.
Tim Hortons. So Tim Hortons out of Canada bought all of the New York, whoever owned the New York franchises. I think there were I can't even wander to guess how many
franchises
in New York City.
Yeah.
Well, Tim Hortons bought them, and they turned all the Dunkin' Donuts into Tim Hortons. My guess is, I don't know if they've got franchisees opening up Dunkin' Donuts again. I can't imagine Manhattan without a Dunkin' Donuts.
Neither can I.
There's got to be one somewhere.
And the one that you showed, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a picture Tim provided in one of the Dunkin' locations. You could see the Empire State Building in the background, and that actually is on 11th or 10th Avenue. I think it might still be there. We have a Dunkin' Donuts here upstate as well. They all had a facelift recently. The franchise, they had some exterior work done and some new signage. But you couldn't stop me. If I went into a Dunkin' Donuts, there's three I always looked at: plain glazed.
Yep.
Then there's the chocolate. The solid chocolate glazed, and my other favorite would be the cream filled one with the chocolate topping.
Oh, you like that one? See, I never liked the cream ones.
Really?
I always liked the apple fritter.
Oh, okay.
Or the coffee roll. But there's nothing like a good glazed donut. Or I used to like the glaze with the chocolate and the sprinkles.
Mm-hmm. When I was out of college and I was at my second job at Avenue Magazine, I'd walk right by a Dunkin' Donuts on the way to the office, and I would get two of those chocolate with the glaze and a cup of tea. Do you know how much crap is in those donuts? I was eating two a morning, but we were young. We were burning it off, right?
Listen, if you're a member of AARP, you can get 2 free donuts. I believe you either get a free donut or 2 free donuts every day. Brian and I used to go through the drive-thru on the way. We'd go down to Philly.
Did you get to show your car?
Well, they got to the point where they didn't even ask. You just said, I'm entitled to a donut. And which you wonder why now. If you've ever been to a Dunkin' Donuts, we would often see a number of old guys there having their coffee and talking. I thought they're all getting their free donut. They're all getting their free donut. Donut and get your coffee. But I think the rebrand, they just changed it to Dunkin. They got rid of the donuts.
Just Dunkin', yeah.
And similar to McDonald's, a lot of it's kiosk based, and for some of us that are technically challenged, it becomes difficult to try to scan and try. I just want to come up and say I'd like a large coffee with cream and sugar.
Actually, when I saw Billy and Edwin at the air show here last weekend, they brought up your kiosk experience, and I think Edwin said that if you actually go to the counter and you ask for a certain thing, you get it for free. If you paid at the kiosk, you had to pay for it, but it was some kind of a milkshake or.
Really? I got to figure out what that is. So I told you, Patrick and Howard have been sneaking in McDonald's and haven't told me after all these years. I got to get in there with them.
They're in the closet. They're in the McDonald's closet, right? Yeah. Top of the pride to you, boys. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a shop talk about procrastination that Mr. Nash found. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. They're all business, except when they're not. It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome back to The Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Focusgroupradio.com is the site. You'll learn about us there, including TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. And if you listen to both, you know that we're always on the hunt for local television spots, local ads, furniture stores. A lot of them tend to be dealerships, usually kind of hilarious. And if we use it on the show, you're going to get a pair of Focus Group socks. I'm not sure how many we have left. I have to go through my box, Tim. We have a good amount left, but not forever amounts. They're going to be rare.
Not forever amounts. Yeah.
They're going to be rare.
They are rare. There's a bin of them somewhere here, although they seem to have.
Tim, things go missing in that ounce in Rehoboth.
You know what else is missing? Did I tell you all the lids off the tubs are missing?
Yeah.
I don't know if they were used to go sledding. I don't know where they are.
Sledding. Why would you in Rehoboth? Yeah.
Why would you get rid of? Yeah, why would you get rid of lids for the tubs?
Issues, as we say, issues. So at the top of the show, I mentioned that we had an article that came to us about science identifying one of the key factors in why you procrastinate. And it was sort of an interesting article because they covered the things that we would normally say. So sometimes people who they say of procrastinators, they don't manage their time correctly, or they're lazy or whatever. And in fact, the article turned that on its head a bit and identified that there are two types of people who procrastinate. But in both cases, the article feels or has come out and said that stress seems to be stress itself, the emotion is what causes this. And it says here in one paragraph, instead of thinking of procrastination in terms of a character flaw or poor time management skills, which I was just reviewing, the researchers saw it as an irrational act, and so emotions are the ground zero. And their theory is that when we are presented with a task, there's a bit of stress associated with it, and some of us mitigate the stress by doing anything but the task, or we mitigate the stress by clicking on something, reading a short article, maybe we clean something, or just anything that gives us a short bump of emotional, like relief from the stress of this task. But then there was a nuance in here where they identified people who actually benefited from the stress of holding off and procrastinating, and they did in fact turn in good work. And then there are, of course, students or people they tracked that just didn't know how to manage the stress of getting something done, and they do in fact call it procrastination, has an effect on life, etc. I thought it was kind of interesting because the mitigation for this we'll talk about in a minute, but what was your first take on the article, Tim?
I didn't agree with it. For me, but maybe it's because it was subconscious. Because there was one line that says, when you procrastinate, you get immediate relief. It's a form of emotional regulation. Mm-hmm. And so that goes to your point of, okay, you say you have to do something. Maybe you were going to fill out your taxes, or you had to check your car insurance or something like that. But then instead you're on there, you're scrolling, you check social media, or you go to Amazon, or maybe go read one of the papers or something. I don't know if that gives me relief from knowing I have a project to do. That's where I was confused on this, because I hate having stuff hanging over my head, but forever I have done this. I remember being a little kid in first grade and getting up early in the morning to do homework because I didn't do it the night before. I got it done, but
under the wire. Yeah.
Under the wire. And I still remember a funny one. I wish I had the picture somewhere. My grandmother helped me one morning. I got up real early and I had to draw a picture of something. And I had to draw a picture of cheese. So I didn't quite know how to draw a picture of cheese. How would you would do a square, right?
I would have done like a cube of Swiss, like you would see on a mousetrap, like a wedge, right?
So my grandmother decided, she says, well, do Swiss cheese. And so that's why I said I wish I had the picture. My mother ended up getting a note from the teacher and got called in because what I drew looked like a set of boobs on on this thing. And then I had spelled out, my grandmother looked at it and I spelled out chest, C-H-E-S-T, instead of cheese, because she looked at it. I'm like, how do I spell this again? And she looked at it and my grandmother thought it was boobs too. Chest. See it. Anyway, so I procrastinated and I still did. I remember in college procrastinating on papers, knowing I had to do them. I still do it to this day on things I think you do as well. Our friend Marianne does. We get it done. I think we get it done and we get it done well. I think I'm thinking about it. And you and I have used this line a million times. The deed is, the dread is
worse than the deed.
Worse than the deed. Because once you get it done, you're glad it's done.
And you're surprised at how, yeah.
I hate having things hanging over my head. And so for me, I don't think me avoiding something gives me relief. Do you think it gives you relief? That's why I was confused on this.
Yeah, you touched on a part of the article that I concur with you. Because in the article itself, they also talked about individuals who procrastinate, but they do so because they're perfectionists or because they don't feel that some of the early stages of a problem solving or a project merit the time, because maybe if they think about it longer, they can put something down that's closer to the answer than not. And I'm kind of in that camp. I'll get something given to me and I'll think about it for a long time. And I've tried to reverse engineer this problem away where I'll give you a perfect example. I have a co-op board shareholder meeting coming up at the end of the month. And we do it by Zoom these days. The pandemic changed everything. It used to be in person, but now we do it by Zoom. And Zoom gives you the opportunity to show things on the screen, like a PowerPoint. So I've been, in my mind, putting together the PowerPoint that I want to present, but I haven't committed to doing it yet because I know for a fact that when I sit down and spend 45 minutes on it, I'll get most of it laid out. Right. I'll get all the text in there and I'll do a refinement pass and show it to the board later. But I thought, what if I took this example that one of the fixes for stress-induced procrastination in the article was breathing exercises, meditation, or if you're a perfectionist and you think you want to do this in your head beforehand, start the project earlier and accept the fact that you're going to go revision, you're going to revise. In many ways, it's sort of like authors will tell you, or people who write for a living will tell you, writing is the art of rewriting. They accept the fact that whatever they put down is going to change and change and change. I'm not quite like that, but maybe Tim's not either. So I started to change my process for the annual shareholder PowerPoint deck. And I threw one together, and that was about 5 or 6 days ago, and it's just sitting because I know I'm going to do it 5 days or 3 days before. I don't know.
But do you have relief, or it's hanging over your head, right? You know you got to do it. You avoiding it is not giving you relief. I guess that's my question to you.
And you're correct. It's not leaving my head. I'm not pushing it away. I know I have to do it. And your story from, I think it goes all the way back to school days. And I also think that positive reinforcement of a bad behavior is troublesome. So I had a diorama. Do you remember we used to do dioramas in school?
Oh,
you take a shoebox. Yeah, so I had a Florsheim shoebox, and I had to do a diorama. And it was due on a Thursday or a Friday. And it was Wednesday. I came home from school. And I'm sitting with the shoebox and a pair of scissors and some construction paper. And my mom's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I have to do a diorama." "What are you doing it of?" "I don't know." "Oh, honey, how long have you had this assignment?" I mean, I got the whole, and I showed her the paper, and it was like, choose your favorite book and do a diorama. So she's like, "Well, what's your favorite book?" And I was well deep into Hardy Boys by then. So I said, "Well, one of the Hardy Boy books." "Well, which one do you want to do a diorama?" So I said, "I don't know." "Well, how about this one?" She pulls off I think it was the second or third Hardy Boy book. It was called The House on the Cliff, and they're in a boat, and there's a house, So I literally recreated the cover as a diorama, but I got it done under the wire, and it received like the best grade in the class. And I remember my mom saying to me, I said, "Mom, I did this in like a day and I got like an A." She goes, "Don't take the wrong example from this." She goes, "You waited too long." And you got called in because you did chest instead of cheese. I got the diorama thing.
CH
I don't know.
words.
So you see what I mean by that? It's like positive reinforcement of a bad habit. You succeeded even though you didn't do the correct process, which means to me that everybody arrives at these things differently. And I'll put it to you this way. And the article asked the same question. Is procrastination harming your life or your health?
Well, I think they would say here that the additional stress could be.
Could be,
right?
Yeah.
If it was stressful.
I'll tell you what you don't procrastinate on. You never procrastinate on being fit or putting the time in to be better in the boat, for better times running. If you're feeling up, you're not someone who procrastinates going to a doctor. You know when it's time to see a physician. It's like those are things I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that, and I think the rowing thing was an issue because it relied on other people, and so other people relied on me because you're only as strong as the weakest person. So within rowing, but I'm sure there's. I have had the same experience you have had. And even in college, and somebody was actually going to turn me in, good friend of ours, because I had written the day before, and this was typewriters, right? So before word processors or Google or anything, I had read one. It was the only thing we had to do for marketing, and it was a term paper on airline deregulation and what it did as from a marketing standpoint for airlines in a business case. And I read one time, and it had to have bibliographies and all these kind of different sources needed to be used and factual identification and attributions and so forth. I just read one Time magazine article, made the whole thing up. And there was combined 2 classes. And I remember the professor, he was a hard ass from Harvard. He said these were the worst papers he'd ever seen. This was going to ruin some people's GPAs. People that had good grades were now going, some may fail the class. And this one person, she's looking at me with a smart ass face. I mean, she had been working on this thing for months. I did it the night before. He goes, "But we had a couple of good papers. So congratulations to those of you who did well, blah, blah, blah. Papers after class, the papers are down front with his assistant. Go pick them up." And I remember going to pick up my paper, and I opened it up, and I got the highest grade of the 2 classes. And I looked at it, and I closed it quick. It was an A, and I closed it, and I looked at the front again. It was my name. I looked again. I was like, oh, my God. And I was nervous because I thought, I probably didn't deserve this, but I guess I wrote a good paper. So I go to the dining hall, and people are crying. A couple of people were upset. And then
my GPA's blown up.
Right. One woman said to me, "Well, you must have been one of the failures. How you wrote that paper last night and finished at 2 a.m. and thought you can handle it." And, or the night before. And Steve Dilworth, as you know, told her, "Hey, you got an A." She left She left. Wouldn't talk to me for a while.
Wow.
She was going to turn me into the dean.
For what? For writing the paper the night before?
Because and she said I had false sources. I said I read a Time magazine article, and I said I wrote a paper. But they had spent hours in the library, combing through all kinds of things. I don't know how he did such a good job. I've saved the paper. I still have it just because I thought it was one of those things to keep. Someday,
Tim, no.
when they do a movie.
This you just proved my point about a good result from what could be a bad work thing. In college, I had a literature class, and we had to write a report on books that that we had gave us an impression or changed our way of thinking. And I couldn't think of one damn thing, and I was too busy doing other things. Yeah. So literally 2 days before, I picked up a paperback that I had. It was called Have Spacesuit Will Travel. It was a sci-fi book by Robert Heinlein. And I held it for a while, and I thought, I remember this book. I sat down and typed out this paper, which to me, I thought, I'm going to get the worst grade. In class, like a week later, the TA took over after the professor. He said, I want to highlight one paper that was submitted that was imaginative. It really took the assignment beyond the paper. I mean, and I'm like, and he goes, it's John Nash. He goes, and he wrote a paper on a book called Have Spacesuit Will Travel. He goes, a thin science fiction book that came out in the 50s or 60s. He said, but his interpretation of what it could do and imagination, I'm sitting there thinking, so
was he a sci-fi fan?
I'll never know. It was just, it's so, somehow I don't want to say, if you're listening and you're a procrastinator or you're worried about it, this is a great article. They do have some things for reducing stress, workflow stuff. If you're listening to the two of us go on about how we've had our bad behaviors reinforced, I think we're sending the wrong message, but hey, it succeeded.
Right? Listen, I did have one time, I don't think you had the class with me, where it did not work out for me. Oh. And I had to write a paper about Quebec, when Canada, so it was Canada, the topic. This was Emil Elgis. Mm-hmm. And we had to write a paper about Quebec. This was in the early 80s or late 70s, early 80s, when Quebec was going to leave the Union. They were going to break up Canada. They were going to be their own country, part of it over language and culture with the French and the English. And of course, my source was my grandmother, who's from Britain, grew up, from the UK. So, and then she migrated to Canada, and so she was very English. And of course, what she felt of the French. So my whole paper was around my grandmother's point of view. And they're handing the papers out. Elgis is handing the papers out, and I don't get my paper.
Oh, I love this story.
And then all of a sudden he goes, oh, and there's one more. And he makes this big scene, opens a desk drawer, pulls out a baggie. And in the baggie, my paper's folded up in a tiny little square, and he comes over to my desk and drops it. I remember Marianne, everybody's laughing. I'm like, what's that? He goes, shit shouldn't be handled. Now, the whole class is laughing. I was mortified, but I laughed. Of course, if you did that now, there'd be all kinds of, the teacher.
Parents, yep.
He goes, do it again. And he goes, where did you get your information from? I said, my grandmother. The class even laughed harder. I did no research. I just thought, I'll talk to Grandma. She'll tell me about the breakup of Quebec and the other provinces. I wish I saved it. It may show up somewhere. I can't imagine I would have thrown it away. But he was very creative with that.
Did you ever see the movie Dick?
No.
It's about these two girls who become the official White House dog walkers for Checkers. Nixon's in the White House at the time. And there's a scene where they're in their school, and one of them is really prim and proper, and the other's kind of like dippy. And the dippy one's in this class, and her teacher's sitting cross-legged on a desk. And he said, now tell us a story. She goes, well, I'm the dog walker for the White House and for Checkers. And they think she's making it all up. He goes, that is so clever and original. And they really were walking the dog. And the other one in her class, she tells the same story. And then one's like, I don't like lying. Like, we had teachers like the one cross-legged guy, or the emo. Emil Elgis was known, by the way, for. We had a lot of teachers who were known for their theater, like delivering your paper in a shit shouldn't be handled in a Ziploc bag. It's brilliant. So wrapping up the procrastination story, there are techniques for it. This came to us from it was called It's from the BBC website, and it's from their science focus section. And if you want to research it some more, Tim may post it, but it's experts have found the one emotion that causes procrastination and how to stop it. In fact, how British, they use the term dilly-dallying. Did you dilly-dally around?
Dilly-dally, twaddle.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks for joining us here on the Focus Group. We appreciate your time with us. As John says, find out all about us at focusgroupradio.com. You'll also find our companion podcast there, TFG Unbuttoned. You can also find us anywhere pretty much podcasts are housed. So whether it's iHeart or it's Spotify or Amazon or Xfinity, Pandora, and YouTube, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we hope everyone has a great week. Be sure to remember, don't text and drive, arrive alive. And we'll see you next time here on the Focus Group. Take care.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.